What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Progressive Gentleman Podcast. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Dan.
I'm Matt.
And thank you for taking the time to nerd out about music with us. We are back with another Matt and Dan episode.
Together, reunited, and it feels so good.
Absolutely. We struggle sometimes finding the time to record episodes. That's why we started going the solo episode route here and there, just to keep pumping content out. But obviously, this is our bread and butter. You know, this is what we like to do most.
Are you bread or are you butter? Which one am I?
Whichever one you want to be, I will let you choose, because that's the kind of guy I
feel like I'm more
of
a butter man.
This could get off the rails real quick, so I'm just gonna go ahead. Something with spreading could happen there. I'm just gonna go ahead and keep moving. But anyways, now that we're past that, it's good to see you, Matt.
Good to see you as
well. We're gonna go ahead and do one of our favorite episodes, and I think a fan favorite as well. And that's a Hidden Gems episode. We recently posted on Instagram a reel, asking people to tell us what underrated bands are out there. Let us know what you guys think are bands that are criminally underrated, and we got a lot of feedback.
Yeah, that was like I think the most interaction we've had on a social media post.
Yeah, it was especially like as far as comments goes. Yeah, that was quite the success, I feel like. And as we say very frequently on this podcast, the reason we do this podcast is mainly just to discover new music selfishly.
So we appreciated all the comments and tried to keep up with and listen to everything that people suggested. Some I dove into more than others, but I tried to at least give every band a fair shake.
Yeah, exactly. And I tried to do the same, dive into some of the ones. A lot of them we had already heard about or were already on our radar, but there were quite a few on there that I had never heard of. So it was cool to be able to sort of add them to the rotation.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's definitely one of the big perks of doing this for sure. But we also like to do throw together episodes like this where we get to talk a little bit more in depth about some of these bands and maybe put them on the radar of some people who maybe just listen to the podcast, or I mean, some of these bands maybe didn't even show up in that post. So definitely something worth doing and something that we enjoy doing. So this is a Hidden Gems episode, and we're gonna just jump right into it with a band that was recommended on that post. So might as well start off there.
Yeah.
A band called Anima Tempo.
This is a cool name too.
It is a pretty cool name. Progressive metal band based out of Mexico City, Mexico. They got 2 full-length records, Chaos Paradox and Caged in Memories. I had never heard of them until I saw them show up on that post.
Yeah, this was a new one for me too.
Clicked and saw they had a song that had almost 500,000 plays, and I was like, underrated? Are we sure? And then I saw a monthly listener count, and just the fact I'd never heard of them. I was like, wow, okay. So these guys clearly make stuff that's good if they're getting 500,000 plays on certain songs, but maybe just hasn't reached fully their target audience. So started diving in, and yeah, these guys are solid. Very, very tight recordings. Everything is very good production value. Sometimes you see bands like that with the low monthly listener count, and you're like, you don't always fully expect like just this fully produced, fantastic, sounding music.
Yeah, like whenever, sometimes it's like the production value is like, well, how much budget do they have? Being like, a band that has less music, less of a, less catalog and stuff is like, if it's your first album, you're maybe not putting as much finance into the album, but this band has crazy production value, I'd say.
Yeah, very much in that sort of modern metalcore meets progressive metal vein. A lot of bands that are out there today have a similar sound, but these guys do a little bit different. I think one thing you pointed out is they kind of get into those like Egyptian style sounding riffs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Similar to like a Born of Osiris or even like an After the Burial, like Rare Form era.
Yeah, like Cursing Akhenaten.
Yeah, exactly. When I first listened to this band, I got like heavy Veil of Maya vibes, especially newer Veil of Maya. and they definitely gent. As the gent
It
ship
does,
posting
Jen.
page would ask, does it? It does for sure. Um, the vocal styles very much like a blend of some cleans with some heavies, or whatever the hell you want to call it, but very much like uh modern metalcore meets progressive metal on the vocals.
Yeah, definitely.
I one of the bands that jumped into my brain as well when listening to these guys, and you actually have it in your notes too, so I'm glad. Uh Instrumentally, intervals here and there. Like
Yeah,
I got like Aaron Marshall guitar tone every once in a while.
yeah. It was like I don't know that I would put it in like the for fans of necessarily, but there was definitely like a lot of that like riffs that would pop in with like this really pretty clean tone that's like still genty but much more on the clean tone side, like something that Aaron would do.
Yeah, I made like a note of that as well when I was listening. There are a couple
I'm glad
other
I'm not
bands.
insane.
Yeah, no, you're not, because it was funny because there's another band that we're going to talk about that I made a note of, sounding like Pliny, so we'll get there. But and then I listened to this band after that band and immediately for some reason got Aaron Marshall like intervals vibes on the song that I clicked on first, and was like, oh, that's funny that I'm going to be talking about Aaron Marshall and Pliny. Plintervals, the very
Yeah, we got it all covered.
but but yeah, very interesting to see that mixed in, especially since, like you said, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a comp for these guys, but like they're clearly doing a lot, and they probably have a lot of influence from a lot of different places.
Yeah.
um I even got like Kill Switch Engage vibes here and there, like some of like a
Yeah.
little bit of classic metalcore vibes here and there. With some of their like interludes in the middle of songs, I got sort of Between the Buried and Me vibes, not because of their sound overall, but I was like, that's something that Between the Buried and Me would do.
The
Um,
change ups and
yeah,
stuff in
like
between.
there's
Yeah.
one song, and I don't remember the name of it. I apologize, but it like it drops into this sort of like, for lack of a better word, like swing groove for a hot second, and then goes back into the song.
Sort of
Um,
like an ants in the sky kind
and
of.
yeah, and I was just like, that's something between the immediately was like, that's something Between the Buried and Me would do.
Yeah.
Um, and some of their yeah, go ahead. It looks like you're gonna say something there.
Oh, I was just gonna say like yeah, I think too like the like BT Bam also does this like with colors too, like they just integrated like weird cartoon sounds,
Yeah,
and like I like how in their Chaos Paradox album they it seemed like they tried to add like a some kind of like, and I don't mean this in like a derogatory meaning, but like and like a gimmick to the song that like makes it stand out from the rest. And it felt like each track was like, what's like after you got a few in, you're like, okay, I see this pattern. Like, what are they going to surprise me with in the next one? It kind of became this sort of like, open a pack of Pokemon cards or something of like, am I going to get like, what am I getting next?
nice.
Like Digital Heart had like the 8-bit chiptune stuff. Then there was some with like the Egyptian sort of influence, and then another one had like a Japanese kind of I forget what that instrument's called. Uh the like Japanese guitar like thing.
I don't know what it is either. My brain keeps shouting lute, but that's not Japanese.
But it's like it's like a Japanese lute, kind of
Yeah.
is like what it is, and I'm blanking on the name, but it sounded like that kind of instrument. Like I don't know if they actually like incorporated that or if it was just like a MIDI thing or what, but it sounded like that. And then there's even like a little bit of like Middle Eastern influence in there too, um, which I thought was just like really cool that they like added all these like other sort of like cool bits into the song, which kind of I goes off piggybacks off the BT Bam stuff where like they just see what they can throw in a song and maybe
Yeah.
like piece
Just
together.
do what they want to do, make their music, and make it
Yeah.
as cool and interesting, and yeah, I definitely dig it. There are some songs as well where I got like newer contortionist vibes here and there also, which sort of also piggyback. That's another band that I think is very frequently mentioned in the same vein as a Between the Buried to me.
Yeah.
And uh yeah, I mean these guys, there's clearly a lot of bands, a lot of across a lot of different sort of styles that we've sort of picked out from their music. So it's definitely something worth checking out. Um if any of this stuff that we mentioned sort of has piqued your interest, cuz these guys are very much uh eclectic and very much like there's a lot to sort of take from their music.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people that listen to our podcast would find something they would like in these guys. So definitely go check out Anima Tempo if you have not already. And speaking of contortionists, because we kind of mentioned them at the end there, uh, there's a band that we interviewed and actually had on a Hidden Gems in the past called Empire Springs that are from
Empire
Birmingham,
Springs is so
Alabama,
good.
and they very much embody that contortionist sound. But we're not going to be talking about them today because we already talked about them. But the next band we're going to be talking about, we were actually sort of brought together by Empire Springs. They sort of introduced us in a way, maybe indirectly, but the next band that we want to talk about is called Jack the Elbow. So they are a 3-piece prog metal band, prog rock band, probably closer to that rock than metal for sure.
Yeah.
Also from Birmingham, Alabama. And they have one LP. It's called Crush. It actually dropped, I think, last year. It's very, very new.
Yeah, it's a very recent.
And these guys sort of answer that age-old question that no one ever asked, which is, what would Coheed and Cambria sound like if Travis Stever took over for lead vocals? Uh, because
So the album actually came out in January, so it's very,
oh
very
wow,
fresh.
okay, I thought it was 2023.
Yeah, it looks like January 5th.
Well, put that on your album of the year list, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely worth checking out. Again, it's crazy to me. Like these guys, I think we were talking earlier, and you said they wear their Coheed influence on their sleeve. I think they wear it on their entire bodies. I really like, we did a video series not that long ago where we were like, if you like this band, you'll like this band, and we did one for Coheed, and it was like 5 bands that you would like if you listen to Coheed and Cambria. And we had not had Jack the Elbow on our radar at that point yet, or else they would have been at the front of the list, because if
Yeah.
if you like that early Coheed sound, that second stage In Keeping Secrets era Coheed sound, and you're looking for something that, something to scratch that itch, Crush absolutely will do that for you. And that's not to say that like they should be put in a box and it's just like that's the Coheed band. That's not really fair. Like they're not like a Coheed cover band. They do their own thing.
Yeah.
But like it's wild to me while I listen to Crush how I'm like, this is Coheed and Davenport Cabinet's like love child.
And I get a lot of like I don't think it feels like it's more just like baked into the mix, but I do get a lot of like like OG prog stuff like Rush and like a bit of like Porcupine Tree in there too. Like some of those
Yeah.
elements. But I think like the Coheed one, and maybe that's just both because we're like addicted to Coheed.
Yeah.
And then
It's
so that's
tough.
like the one that like hits us the most. But I definitely see like those like the love letter to like the OG prog stuff.
Which, I mean, as any fan of Coheed sort of knows too, it's like Coheed always gets heavily compared to Rush, especially by like old heads, like old prog heads. Um, and I think that comparison is fair. And because that comparison is fair to Coheed, and because these guys are very much like influenced and sound a good bit like early Coheed, I think the Rush comparison is very fair. Um, I even get like a little bit of like modern metalcore in some of their instrumentation here and there. So I mean, you could even, and this isn't like a direct comp, but you could even throw a band like Periphery into the mix as like a instrumental sort of influence, not heavily like because they stay very much in that prog rock vein, but
Yeah.
I would say Deer Hunter.
Yeah, Deer Hunter's a good one.
A big probably an influence, but definitely like get Deer Hunter vibes.
Yeah, I feel like Jack the Elbow is less like cinematic, kind of, for lack of a better way.
Yeah, they're not. It doesn't sound like they're writing a musical, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's more like your traditional like prog rock than that kind of like theatrical stuff that Deer Hunter does. But I do definitely see like some of that in like the guitar riffs and stuff that like that prog rock flavor.
Yeah, you put Carnival on the list as well, and I agree with that also. That's probably like as close to like a prog metal comp that you could give Jack the Elbow for sure. But I mean the songwriting is on point. I think the guitar tone is very like again where I'm getting like heavy sort of old school Coheed.
Yeah.
It influence like but I mean, yeah, I mean how can you go wrong? Like if I wrote a record, right? If I wrote a record and I released it and everybody was like this sounds like Second Stage or this sounds like In Keeping Secrets, that I would be able to die happy. You know what I mean? Like those are such iconic records. So if I ever made,
if you wrote a record, it would be Jack the Elbow's Crush.
I'm saying I would freaking love if I could write a record like Jack the Elbow's Crush is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's like some people. I feel like some people when they get comped, like put in a box heavily, which I'm trying not to do that, but I kind of am doing that with Jack the Elbow by putting them in that Coheed and Cambria box. Like some bands don't like that. Like some bands are like, well, we're our own band. And I think Jack the Elbow is their own band. But like if someone was to put me in a box and that box was Coheed and Cambria, like Coheed and Cambria like or whatever, like this guy sounds like Coheed, I'd be like, fuck yeah. Like, like thank you.
As much as we love Coheed, like this is not at all like a slight to Jack the Elbow. Like,
no.
It's a high praise because I mean, especially because you're comping them to like some of our favorite Coheed albums too,
right? So and some of like fan favorite Coheed albums, and
yeah,
not throw some more praise out there. Very high authority on music. My wife. I was playing Jack the Elbow's record Crush in my car on the way to an event that her and I were going to. And she had said like, "Oh, this is some of the best sort of new music you've listened to in a while." She said something along those lines. So
yeah, and my wife too was we were listening to Jack the Elbow the other day, and I was like, "I think you'll dig these guys," and she was like, "Oh, I really like this." And she was really enjoying it.
So you guys can quote that, Jack the Elbow. Go ahead and say the Progressive Gentle Wives approved. You can go ahead and slap that sticker on your record.
Sounds like a really bad reality TV show.
It does sound like that. Coming soon. Anyway, so yeah, that was I really enjoy that record. Jack the Elbow for fans of Coheed, Rush, Carnival, Deer Hunter, prog rock. In general, definitely go check out Jack the Elbow's Crush.
Absolutely.
Big fans. So moving on to a band that you've actually seen live. I have not. I was supposed to be there. I was not there. A band called Secret Gardens, a post-rock band, some prog elements from New York. And yeah, I honestly, like, when I first heard of these guys, the first song and probably the only song that I had listened to at the time was the song they did with the singer from Idola.
Yeah.
And
it's an awesome song to start with.
It is a really good song. And I thought they had a singer. So like I just thought, I mean, like I knew that that's who that was, right? But I didn't realize that they didn't have a vocalist. So whenever I took whenever we put these guys on the list, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually excited to sort of explore their catalog. Um, and I put on Everbloom, which was one of their full lengths. They also have one called Tundra. But I put on Everbloom and started it, and I was like, oh, a nice little instrumental sort of intro track. And then the next track comes out, and I was like, oh, another instrumental. Like that's cool. Like back to back.
You're
And then,
halfway through the album before you're like, wait a
yeah,
minute.
I'm like, when will the vocals come in? But so quickly realized that is my thoughts around this band were not true. But loved it. I mean, heavy Pliny vibes. Like I really genuinely enjoyed it, and that's again high praise because Pliny's one of my favorite guitarists
Yeah.
going right now, and his music and his writing style is awesome. And the fact that I could have, if you told me that was like a Pliny record, I wouldn't have been, surprised.
Yeah, I know like they're kind of classified as post rock, but I feel like there's a lot of prog elements. I mean, just the fact that like the they've stated that their intent is to put out an album like a concept album based off of each season. So like right now they have Tundra and Everbloom, so it's like winter and spring, and then they will have summer and fall come out later at some point. I'm not sure exactly when, but that's a very prog ass thing to do.
Yeah,
And
and you factor that in with like mixing up time signatures and featuring prog vocalists from prog bands like
yeah,
Idola is in that prog camp. They have a song with the vocalist from Chan, very much in that like math rock prog rock camp. So it's like that's
yeah,
another good band to comp them to as well as like Chan, like that very much like some of the stuff at least is very much sort of and Everbloom was what I spent the most time with, and I think that album has a much sort of brighter sort of for lack of like I don't know how to best describe it. You might have a better words for it, but
yeah. It's like it's more like I think it actually like, and I'm sure this was their intent. The Everbloom album has a lot more of like a hopeful kind of tone to it. Like it's more upbeat and it has that like I get like pretty and peaceful sort of sound that you get kind of from a Pliny record, where it's
yeah,
like sort of feel good and stuff. And then Tundra is more like somber and like there are obviously moments in the songs that like swell and have like that kind of pretty. I mean, the both albums sound very good, but the Tundra one is kind of more like sad and somber. I feel like.
there's some heavy moments on that Tundra album too.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like it is more like I don't know, like dystopian, I guess. Like the tundras are just kind of like, which I would expect. I mean, most people hate winter, and I feel like people get kind of like there's less daylight. It's a more sad season, I think. So I feel like the
Yeah,
emotions you get from the music from the album align with winter, and then Everbloom being like fresh beginnings and the flowers are blooming and the sun is out and daylight is longer and stuff is kind of blends with that well.
yeah, I think that's a good sort of description of the sound difference between those two records. Like Squall on Tundra, there's some pretty heavy moments on that. Like
Yeah.
probably heavier than really anything that I remember off of Everbloom. So, uh it's definitely a cool mix. I like that they're sort of putting sort of a theme on it and then sort of writing to that theme in a way that not only like makes you feel like the music lines up to that theme, but it also differentiates their sound enough that you're like it makes them more uh like it shows off sort of their abilities. Oh yeah, we can write the
Yeah.
heavy sort of chuggy breakdowny like heavy riff stuff like what you can hear on Tundra, but then we can also write a record like Everbloom that makes you think that Pliny was involved in some way, or a band like Covet, like very very upbeat, positive, bright sort of
Yeah.
riffs that give you that sort of like Like
I'm
everything's gonna be okay vibes. Like,
yeah.
oh, look how great, like, oh, the sunshine and daisies, you know?
Yeah, I'm very curious what like their summer album and like fall album are gonna be like. Like I'm trying to picture in my head like what type of music, and I'm like for the summer one I picture like very like Hawaii 5-0 kind of like
the
beachy
summer
music.
the summer record is going to be a strictly EDM record.
See,
And
I'm thinking like steel drums and like
the fall record is going to be a horrorcore record.
oh wow, we went very different. I for me, I'm thinking of like lo-fi, like just
Pumpkin
kind of
spice
like
latte,
yeah, like comforty, like ooh, this music
warm
reminds
and
me of like
cozy,
yeah, nice
pumpkin
cup of
pie.
tea and a hoodie, relaxing,
See,
and you're
there's
thinking of
there's two different type of people in the world. There's the people who associate fall with like cozying up by the fire with a pumpkin spice latte and a blanket, and then there's people who are like running away from like a serial murderer outside. Like those are the two types of people, and I think we've identified which person we are, so that's fine.
it's funny though, like how very different our ideas of what their concept album will sound like. So that even more makes me like excited to hear what they come up with and how different it's gonna be. So that's a cool. I really enjoy that like that concept. It's like it's not necessarily a story as a concept; it's a season, which I feel like is not a thing that you really see. So I think just that alone is like really cool to me.
The only other artist, and I could be wrong, but I think Angel Vivaldi did something like that, didn't he?
Oh really? I
Like
actually like I've
he has
listened
like
to
a
Angel,
song
but
like
not like a
like
ton. To...
Mercutian Winter or something, and something. He has like some, and I'm literally just pulling this out of my ass right now, so I apologize. Like because this was not on the notes, but I know that he has some like Angel Vivaldi did something like that. Or
Oh,
maybe
okay.
it's just a song series. Maybe it's not an album thing. So maybe I'm just making this up. But I thought he had something where it was like winter. I don't remember.
Either way, I think it's a cool
No, it's super
concept
like
that.
that's an entire. I for some reason I thought he did more than what he actually did. I think, but uh,
But that
yeah.
makes me
So
now I need to check that out too.
check Universal Language. It's an EP by Angel Vivaldi. It's just a song. It's a Venusian spring, a Mercurian summer, an Eurasian autumn, and a Martian winter.
Oh, okay.
It's
So he
just four
did like
songs, so
seasons,
it's
but
like
it's
it's kind of yeah.
songs instead of an album.
So I wasn't completely like I
No,
wasn't
you were
completely off
on
base.
base. There's the right artist, and he did seasons.
Yeah, it just that's what popped into my head. Anyways, Secret Gardens, these guys are awesome. If you're looking for a good mix of instrumental music with some pretty cool vocal features mixed in, for fans of Pliny, Covet.
They also
Um,
put on a pretty cool show. Like they had a lot of stage presence too. So if you get a chance to see them if they're in your area, they put on a fun show. So
Hell yeah. And one other thing too, I because like that feature with Idola even made me think of this. Some of their instrumentals are very much in that swan core sort of realm as well. So if you're fans of all the music that sort of falls under that umbrella, that Dance Gavin Dance umbrella, I think this is a band that you would enjoy as well.
yeah,
So
that's a good comparison.
yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there before we move on. And now we are going to move on. So the next band is a band we discovered recently called FARSIGHT, Long Island, New York metalcore band. We struggled fully putting them into the metalcore camp because they do some things. I mean, the cores, right? Like metalcore, hardcore, deathcore, whatever
Yeah.
the fuck core. Like the core stuff is very interchangeable at times, and usually they just take whatever one they're leaning towards closest and just sort of slap that badge on their chest, and that's sort of how they represent themselves. But these guys do a lot of things that I feel like classic and modern deathcore, like you get in sort of that genre. So I would even say like leaning deathcore a bit. And then we even pointed out too, they have a couple sort of short, just heavy breakdowny type songs
Yeah.
that like is very reminiscent of what modern hardcore bands do. Um,
Yeah, like that Harakiri, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but has just like a straight up like slam groove in there. It's like it's just very like hardcore sound. And
yeah,
yeah, I had a really hard time of like picking bands that were like direct comparisons. Like I feel like they do a lot of familiar stuff, but like I can't put my finger on like a band that's like direct. It's like this was a harder one for me to think of like comp
yeah.
bands.
So it's interesting. So like the first thing I did, I think they reached out to us basically, hey, check us out. And any by the way, if you're a band listening to this, please do that. We enjoy,
Yeah,
you know,
don't feel like,
yeah,
embarrassed or anything. It's like
yeah.
we're
And
happy
usually
to be like, check us out.
that's that's people know that they can do that, but just in case you're like, oh, I want to send them, I wonder what they think. Not that anybody gives a shit what we think, but definitely don't be afraid to do that. So they reached out to us and I jumped on to Spotify and started listening to, is it an EP? I think it's an EP, right? Exhume. That's not a
Yes,
full length.
yeah.
So started listening to their EP Exhume. The first song that sort of stuck out to me was Solace.
Yeah, that song rips and it's like
And that
the
that might
second
be,
track.
yeah, I was gonna say that might be my favorite song by Farsight for sure. I was getting like Messengers era or uh, uh August Burns Red from times, like Truth of a Liar type vibes, Backburner type vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
Um,
definitely see that.
and then they released a new song recently called Detrimental Chemistry, and to me that was almost like the band that stuck in my head with that track was like Veil of Maya, like newer Veil of Maya,
Yeah.
like Overthrow at Veil of Maya. I forget the name of that record, but the one with Overthrow on it. I don't remember the name of that record,
Yeah.
but
I'm blanking.
um but yeah, so I mean it's an interesting mix of all these sort of modern metalcore, progressive metalcore, whatever type bands. But then the vocal styles that they mix in across their discography sort of blend the vocal styles that you're used to hearing in modern metalcore with like almost some classic slash modern deathcore vocal styles. So then it's like there's not a whole lot of metalcore bands doing that.
Yeah,
So
it
that's
was
it's in those moments where you're like, are they metalcore? Like, I mean, yes, right? I mean, they are for sure, but they're setting themselves apart by sort of blending these different. And again, it's all core, so it's all sort of like interchangeable in a way, I guess. But like,
yeah, there's like a lot of bleed over with different core things, but yeah, I kept getting like my brain, and maybe this is just the way my brain works, but I was just like, I'm getting a lot of Darko vibes, and I mean,
yeah,
I've
that's a
been
good
listening to a
comp.
lot of Darko, so maybe that's just why. But that was the one thing where I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of that like Darko deathcore kind of sound here, and which I thought was really cool, and I enjoy. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Exhume. I'm a big fan of that EP. I think it's great from sort of start to finish. Another band that popped into my head while listening to that EP was Invent Animate. I think if we're gonna give them a comp to anything, like to any band modern metalcore, Invent Animate is probably a really good comp for them. Um, but yeah, I mean, all these bands that are heavy hitters in the modern metalcore, progressive metalcore scene. These guys are shades of those bands. They definitely, you know, do things that make you think, that they would sort of fit in on even like a tour or on something with bands like that. Um,
yeah, I feel like Farsight would be like they could be because their sound is has borrows from so many different genres. They're like I could see them on pretty much any band's like tour. Like I could see them touring with metalcore bands, deathcore bands, hardcore bands, like, and they wouldn't be out of place on any of those bills, really.
Yeah, that's the thing too, because a lot of people will probably listen to this and be like, "Oh, metalcore, hardcore, and deathcore, like they're all cores, they're all the same sounding, whatever." But like, stick to your guns opening for a band like Veil of Maya isn't super normal. Like that's not something you see.
Yeah,
But
that
like if you saw
that'd
a
be
band,
sweet. I would enjoy that
I mean, I'm
much.
not saying I'd be mad about that. You'd probably see that on some festival lineups, uh but like seeing Farsight as an opener for Stick to Your Guns or seeing Farsight as an opener for Veil of Maya, neither one of those would surprise me. So that's why I'm like trying
Yeah,
to sort of show like, okay, yeah, like there's a lot of similarities across all of the core genres, but these guys I feel like set themselves apart from all of them by doing a pretty unique blend of everything from those subgenres.
yeah, and it's like I think because they blend it all so well that it's like, well, this is kind of deathcore, but also kind of hardcore, but also kind of metalcore, and was like, it gave me such a difficult time being like, I don't know who to compare them to because they like fused it all so well.
And they did drop a video as well for Detrimental Chemistry. Very much like horror movie vibes on that.
Yeah,
Since we were just talking about, which type of autumn boys we are.
yeah,
If you're a horror movie type autumn fall person, go check out their video for Detrimental Chemistry. It's definitely a very horror movie inspired.
It is funny that your brain went there for the fall thing because you're also not like a huge horror movie guy, whereas I'm more
I
of a
am.
horror movie guy.
I was gonna say it is strange that like I associate it with that and you don't, but you're definitely the bigger horror movie fan. That is
Our
funny.
brains are both out of whack today, I guess.
That seems to be the theme.
We just like Freaky Friday each other.
But yeah, definitely go check out Farsight. Huge fan of the Exhume EP. The new single out, very good as well. Definitely check it all out if you're a fan of Veil of Maya, Darko, After the Burial, even Invent Animate. Definitely something for you in their discography. So go show them some love. And now moving on to the final band and definitely the outlier.
They're the most unique. I think,
this is a band
here.
to me that it is so interesting to see the reception for this band in the metal community. And this is a band that is opened for Issues, Silent Planet, Oceano. Like these are
That one
bands.
is the weirdest, I think. But it's also so cool. But
And there are others as well, but those are just the three that I remember off the top of my head without looking it up. But they have opened for some decently heavy hitting metalcore, deathcore type bands. And they are self-described soul punk. So the band is Nightlife.
all one word.
All one word, Nightlife. Soul punk band from Baltimore, Maryland. Our friends in Baltimore, very close by to us here in Pittsburgh, PA. We have some sports rivals, but that's fine. We love the people. And so a little bit of background on how we even found Nightlife. So as everyone knows, we're pretty good fans of Sleep Token. I know that Sleep Token's a polarizing band in the, gent community. We'll say gent community, but like the metal community in general, like
Yeah.
if you deny Sleep Token's greatness, I think there's probably like
I feel like it's like edgelord like counterculture
Yeah,
at this
I
point
think-
where it's like I just hate them because
it's like the Nickelback thing. Like Nickelback's like writes good music. Like come on, like we get it. Like Creed. Like we've already talked about Creed, but like
yeah.
it's just cool to hate them. Like I just feel like there's just something that you got to work out with your therapist. You know what I mean? So and that's fine.
Yeah,
Like there's nothing wrong with that. But Sleep Token makes good music. Whether you like it or not, that's fine. Everybody has their own opinion. But
but you can't deny
we
the
right, you can't
talent.
deny that they're writing good music and doing things that, mixing certain genres that sure there are other bands doing it, other bands out there doing it, but I don't know if there's any other bands out there doing it as well. Anyways, this isn't about Sleep Token though. This is about Nightlife. So how we discovered Nightlife was there is a groove section at the end of the Summoning by Sleep Token where it's like this groove breakdown, like groovy, funky breakdown type thing that we just had never really heard before
Yeah,
in
we're just like
progressive
we want
music.
metal with funky bass.
Yeah, we were just like, like, we didn't realize we needed it until we heard it. You know what I mean? Like, that was one of
And
those
we're like,
things where
more.
yeah, and so we went down a rabbit hole on Reddit and discovered that there were a lot of people that were in the same sort of camp that were like, what is this? Where can we have more? And insert Nightlife here. So Nightlife was presented on this Reddit thread as, their song New Low was in particular presented where it's like if you like, sort of like funky, groovy, I mean, in a way, like, punk slash hardcore slash like prog rock type. Like, I mean, it just like it's sort of if you like funky stuff and like want to groove around with it, and this is the song that was presented. Like, here's the closest thing that you can
Yeah.
get to a full song that'll scratch the itch that you just have from that summoning funky breakdown type thing. And I think we both sort of fell in love with that song.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
was so different than anything we had been listening to, but it very much scratched that itch that we were looking to sort of scratch from that riff in the summoning. And then we explored their whole catalog, and it was all sort of this funky punk rock. Like, I mean, soul punk is a
Yeah.
solid
I did.
descriptor.
Yeah. There's just so much in their music. Like there are songs that sound like it could be like a modern revival of like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys, like very like boy band poppy stuff at times. But then there's like the really cool like funk elements, and then even get some like metalcore in there at times, and it's just like they're doing a lot of stuff, and I like that they sort of coined their own genre because I feel like it's well deserved that like they have crafted this like magical like niche of music that people like didn't know they wanted, and now that they've made it exist, is like we need it, we need more.
Yeah, and I mean like a lot of like sort of post-hardcore guitar sound too mixed with like
Yeah,
funk elements that it's just like it's one of those things where if one of those things was erased, right? Like if you erase the post-hardcore guitar or whatever or like the influence there and then it's just like maybe it wouldn't be as appealing, but like the way that they blend all of that. When I say not as appealing, I mean not as appealing to sort of the crowd that we belong to, right? Because it's
yeah,
crazy to me to see how many people who support the music that we support also are like fans of Nightlife.
yeah,
And I can easily say that like me 15 years ago would have been like I wouldn't have even touched this, you know what I mean? But like the way that metalcore, prog metal, prog rock, all that stuff has evolved, it's like Nightlife fits right in there. And that's why you're seeing them on tours with like they did that tour with Issues, which I think is a solid fit. Like I could see them fitting with like Volumes.
yeah.
Um
That would be a good one.
you threw out Dayseeker. I think that's a really good sort of like that's another band that if you're a fan of Dayseeker, I think there'd be a lot of crossover. We
That would
threw
be an
out
awesome show, honestly. If like, and maybe they've already toured with them, and I just like missed that or don't remember it. But that would be a cool combination to see.
yeah, and You put Bill Murray on this list. I like that too. Like
Yeah.
both very unique bands that I think would sort of mesh well. We did put Sleep Token on here mostly because that's how we discovered them, but also like if you're a fan of Sleep Token, you probably would like Nightlife as well. Um, I think a good record to throw out to say if you like this record, you're 100% gonna like Nightlife is the Deer Hunters Anti record. If you
That's a good one
like,
too, yeah.
if you like the Deer Hunters Anti record, which is very funk forward,
Funk forward.
I think you will love the things that Nightlife is doing. Which, I mean, get on board because have a feeling. I mean, they just released a new single not that long ago, Face to Face, and I think it's a great sort of continuation of what they were doing prior. I think it's one of the best songs they've written. New Low is my favorite song. It's my first song that I heard from them, and I just still groove to it all the time to this day. But like, Face to Face is another great track, and if they keep pumping out bangers like that, and we end up getting like a full length out of them, that's sort of in that same vein. Like, I think that record is going to be, if it exists, because again, I don't really know if that's something that's being worked on. And these guys do follow us on the podcast, so hey, if you guys are listening, reach out to us. Let's set something up. But
yeah, it'd be sweet to.
And I just either get you guys on the podcast as an interview, or just selfishly, I'd love to know what's going on behind the scenes. But yeah, no, these guys really surprised me with, like, they made me surprise myself in a way of like how far my music sort of taste has come, that I could listen to like the Zenith Passage and then drop into New Low by Nightlife and just not even bat an eye. You know what I mean?
And like, I think that's why like I put like Bill Murray and stuff is like, I don't think any of these bands are like exactly like comparisons or anything, but there's just like the genre blending, kind of carving out their own niche. Like with Bill Murray, like injecting like a bunch of like country into his music lately, is like he's kind of creating his own like country core kind of, and I think like Nightlife is doing that with like kind of the soul sort of like R&B kind of stuff into
that funky core.
Yeah. Funky core, I dig it. But man. I think it just like you said about how neither of us would have expected, and like, you know, this wouldn't have been something we probably would have listened to, like, you know, in our high school days and stuff, but we've both been enjoying the like pop infuse into prog and just, you know, rock and metal in general. It was like getting some of those elements, like with Exploring Birdsong, and I mean they even like sung the praises of Nightlife as well.
Yeah, that's true. Because we recently, you know, for those living under a rock, we recently interviewed a band called Exploring Birdsong. Incredible band. Definitely check them out, and check out that episode. Probably one of our favorite episodes we've ever done.
Yeah, it was
and
fun.
Yeah, at the end, we've been asking anybody, you know, what are you listening to lately? What was your album of the year? Whatever, and sort of, you know, what bands do you want to prop up? Whatever. And Lindsay Ward from Exploring Birdsong threw out Night. Was it Lindsay or Johnny? One of the two.
They all kind of like gushed about Nightlife, but I forget who. I think it was Lindsay.
I think it was Lindsay. Yeah,
that she was.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about Nightlife on that episode as well, and yeah, I mean it's cool to see sort of their impact on the scene, being, you know, further stretched than just what we think too, because I wouldn't have expected anybody else to bring them up, so it's cool to see that they're getting out there.
Yeah, they might honestly. I don't know if they even necessarily still classify them as a hidden gem. I saw like as of this morning they're up to like 50,000.
Oh geez,
monthly listens on Spotify. So they're like
they've been found
out of the hidden gem territory. But I mean, we both love this band so much that it was like we just wanted to be able to talk about them. And
they've been on our list since we found them, since we found that song back when Sleep Token's new record dropped, and we like went down the rabbit hole and like, so we've been listening
on some of the jams of the week, and we've talked about them on previous podcasts, but like wanted to give them their fair share of love on an episode. And
yeah, we weren't going to scratch them off our list for this just because they're getting more popular. So we want to keep feeding that. So
they're still more hidden than they should be.
Agreed.
So
yeah, definitely check out Nightlife, especially if you like, sort of that Dayseeker sound. Gold Necklace is another good comp. Sleep Token, especially the poppier sides of Sleep Token. And if you like that Antima record by Deer Hunter, you're definitely going to like Nightlife.
Yeah, that was a good one. I didn't think about that, but that's a good comparison as well.
And yeah, so that sort of wraps up our 5. So just to sort of do a quick little recap. So Anima Tempo, progressive metal band based out of Mexico City for fans of like Born of Osiris, Veil of Maya, Within the Ruins, even like Winds of Plague. Jack the Elbow, 3-piece prog rock metal band, mostly prog rock from Birmingham, Alabama. If you like Coheed, especially early Coheed, and ever wondered what would Coheed sound like if Travis Stever was the singer, definitely check out Jack the Elbow. Those guys are awesome. Same if you like sort of like old school prog, like Rush. Those guys are definitely for you. Secret Gardens, post-rock band, some prog elements out of New York, New York.
And it's Secret Gardens, plural, because I think there is a Secret Garden, and it's like a 2-piece, like, I think they're like Finnish or Norwegian band. So I imagine the sound is very different. I didn't listen to Secret Garden, but just as a clarifier, so you get the right one.
So Secret Gardens, plural, but go check out Secret Garden too. Let us know how that is. For fans of Covet, I get heavy Pliny vibes, and then they have songs featuring the vocalists from Chon and Idola, also comps, so definitely go check them out if that sounds like it's up your alley. FARSIGHT, another band from New York, Long Island specifically, metalcore with some hardcore, deathcore elements. We struggle to put them in a box, but for fans of After the Burial, Darko, Veil of Maya, Invent, Animate, so definitely check them out. And then Nightlife, the band we just talked about, that soul punk band from Baltimore, Maryland. If you like sort of the poppier side of Sleep Token, if you like Dayseeker, Issues, they just did that big run with their Gold Necklace, Bill Murray, and Antimai by the Deer Hunter. Definitely check these guys out if you like any of that, if that sounds up your alley. And yeah, this was fun. I definitely enjoyed. Yeah, I really enjoyed sort of just taking the dive and listening to a lot of music that isn't heavily in our rotation, but now some of this stuff definitely is.
I feel like prepping for this episode was one of the more like all over the place as far as the genres and stuff, and I was like, man, my algorithm's gonna be all jacked up. Going from like deathcore to Nightlife, and it was just like but it was fun.
And it's just, I think, a testament to sort of how all over the place not only our sort of listening tastes are, but just like progressive music, heavy music, rock music, like just there's so many subgenres, and each one has sort of influence from another. And there's so much crossover, and I think there's a lot of crossover from styles, but then also from fandoms because of that. And it's cool to see, one, how far our music taste has come, but also how far reaching like heavy music, progressive music sort of is, as far as just the different styles that exist, the subgenres that exist. And it's fun to sort of take dives into each one, and for an episode like this, having going from deathcore to soul punk is very very interesting. So, and I think really sort of displays how how crazy things can be in the world of heavy music, rock music, progressive music in general. So thanks everyone who listened for going on this journey with us. Definitely take a listen to all of these bands. We recommend back to back just to get the full experience that we got doing the prep, because it is quite it is quite interesting. You know, if you're a person who you know, claims to listen to just about anything, and you know, you don't sort of limit yourself to, oh, I'm just a deathcore man or I'm just a metalcore man, you know, we highly recommend doing that because it's quite interesting, like the contrast. But it's also cool because then you start drawing parallels, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, these bands are completely different, but like what they did there is kind of similar. Like you get that sort of post-hardcore type stuff that, you know, that you might pick up in a Jack the Elbow song, that you might also hear in a Nightlife song, that you might also hear in a sort of FARSIGHT or an Anima Tempo song. Like it's interesting. Like you start to
break
connect
down
some
the
dots.
genre barriers so that you aren't just the deathcore dude, or you know, you can broaden your horizons to some soul punk.
Branch out a little bit. You know, try something new. Like my wife always tries to get me to try new vegetables. It's the same thing. Take your veggies. And with that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. So thank you everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. I didn't say this at the beginning, so I'm just going to throw it at the end here. This episode is brought to you by Eargasm Earplugs. Go use code Gentleman10 at checkout and take the step to protect your hearing today. Thanks to everybody who has used that code and purchased a pair of earphones. It definitely helps us sort of branch out a little bit and extend to a bigger audience. So we appreciate that, and also protect your damn hearing.
Yeah.
If you want to be listening to this music when you're 50, 60, 70 years old, maybe you won't, maybe you will. If you want to be listening to any goddamn music, like protect your hearing, you know, don't wait until it's too late. Like so many of us do. So, Eargasm Earplugs, definitely go check those out. And yeah, until the next one, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. And, we'll see you later.
Thanks.